We hit the move button on my wheelchair.
Oh, they didn't have Bud Light.
Okay, so what are you gonna get?
What would you pick between Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Corona Light?
Corona Light.
That's what I went with.
Here by popular request, the man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Curran. The first season of Cheesesteaks with would not be complete without him. I do want to thank Jimmy for being a bit of a guinea pig, as well as let the audience know that in trying to up my audio game, I ran into some technical issues, growing pains, if you will. I'll do better next time, I promise. Links to Jimmy's info in the description. Video of the cheesesteak review is on YouTube, and as always, a special cut of the podcast on Patreon. Check it out.
That conversation's neither here nor there. You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
The old days of Disable.
Why this?
Kind of like, so we're currently at Nick's Bar and Grill, which is right next to Jimmy's apartment. And we just set up in this little booth,
Yep.
which I dig. We got the camera rolling. Appreciate you out here testing. But, you know, some restaurants can get a little weird about filming, and you said, like, just order the beers without telling them. And it reminded me of all the events. So Jimmy started a clothing brand, and for the first, like, basically as long as he could and whenever he could, he would use events. And even when I came on too, so I'm not pinning this on him, I just followed his lead, and it was a badass lead. And actually, I remember reading Damon John's book.
Yeah.
They did the same thing, like setting up food building. Yeah, we just set up and post up, and I remember getting kicked out of. I remember getting kicked out
a few events.
New York City's Pride Parade. No, not Pride. Disability Pride.
Anniversary.
Yeah, basically the Disability Pride Parade.
Yeah.
We weren't kicked out of the Philly one. We were just told to stop selling.
Right, that was the some kind of
No, we weren't. No. You're thinking of the
cancer wolf.
We weren't kicked out of that. We just set up without any. We just had a little table and we just left. We were fine, like nothing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Remember at City Hall, you made the shirts for them.
Oh, right, the 25th anniversary event
In Philly.
At City Hall, and be the vendor, but they said that we're not allowed to sell stuff.
Yeah.
But we just continued to
sell
stuff.
But then they kept breathing down our necks.
Yeah.
And they were like, pack it up. So then we like left.
Yeah.
We just left the event like an hour early.
Yeah. It made no sense that we'd had to pay to be there, but couldn't sell our merchandise.
So on one hand, you know, I feel weird because like I'm happy to have you on this podcast, and I know you were on my channel one time before, but we've talked about this stuff so much, and like there's this thing about not just the disabled community, but any sort of community that's trying to like forward an issue, you know, or like a cause. And they're good causes and they're righteous causes, but it's like I hate having the guy in the wheelchair on talking about weird wheelchair stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, so like I don't want to fall in that trap, but at the same time, I think one of the biggest things that I wish people would take away from my book, if they read it, about our relationship, is like, it's not like about disability, you know? It's about two kids, and the wheelchair is kind of like a little bit of gasoline on a fire to make some of our crazy stories crazier. Because it adds another element.
Yes.
And so I guess what I'm saying is, like, I hate the fact that, you know, I don't want to fall into this conversation where it's like, oh, have the, you know, talk about disability stuff. You know what I mean? I think it's so interesting because it's like we did these disability events with a brand that was related to disability, but you had this, like, savage entrepreneur, like, you know, competitive spirit that was like, yeah, we're setting up. Like, why can't, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that was a lesson where I was like, you know, even the community for that event expected you to pay as a vendor, but thought you were a charity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not a nonprofit that we did.
Yeah, it's not a nonprofit. They asked you to pay,
although sometimes the reason I thought we would get away with, not signing up with a vendor or popping up at events that we didn't necessarily like
belong
at
legally.
was because I'm in a wheelchair and people are not going to say like, you have to leave, or like be super harsh
Yeah.
when like they encounter a person in a wheelchair. So one of the many benefits of one of the upsides of being in the chair is that you get away with stuff that some people would not get away with.
Wheelchair privilege.
Yeah.
Well, what else, man? What's next?
That's what I'm trying
What's
to
next
figure
for
out.
Jimmy Curran?
I tried to write more of the book that you've read. It feels long. I also don't know, like, how interesting is it?
I think it's really interesting because, I mean, people like love stories, especially bad relationships. And it's like, again, just like we mentioned with us hanging out, the wheelchair adds gasoline to this fire. You know? And it has this whole other element where it's like, there's different parts of the story that make things interesting. There's the relatable aspect, and then there's like the unrelatable aspect. And like when you read about a story that's just so unrelatable, like I always think it's hilarious. Not hilarious, but like crazy. Like I absolutely love mafia stories. Like learn about mafia figures, stuff like that, right? And it's like, dude, that is so far from my life, you know what I mean? Like, I could not last as a mafia guy, you know what I mean? And like, I'm not connected, none of that stuff. But like, I'm infatuated with that stuff, you know? Because there's just like, it's not shock value, but there's this like intrigue of like, whoa, and I feel like your story offers that, but also with this relatable thing, like, wow, all right, this is different in this regard, but at the same time, like, I understand those feelings, and why is she doing that, or why is he doing that, So
yeah, I hear that.
And I took that as your concern with how interesting it is to other people. If you don't find it interesting yourself, that's a problem.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I do want to write another book. Like I thought about doing a book about like called the wheelchair effect, and how just like how having in a wheelchair has impacted like different things that I've gone through, like getting a job, college, like different like things like that, and how a wheelchair is really different. But I don't know that there's that many topics that are that interesting.
Well, I think someone told me this when I started writing, and I hated it because in my head I'm like, everyone's going to read my book. But they were like, think about who you want to speak to, and like, honestly, just like it's so easy to give other people advice on this topic, like I'm about to do now. Like, it's one of those things like when you can look at it objectively, but like you're looking at it, from your own thing, like your emotional attachment to the story. Like the way you feel about it is different than the way I see it, just from a million things, right? But just like we were talking about how you went and talked to kids that, had a disability. And you seem like you enjoyed that. Like, dude, you write a book basically telling yourself everything you wish you had known when you were like in middle school that surprised you about the way your life turned out. And then like that's an easy hit up a school like that or a program and be like, hey, I have this, you know what I mean? And even like you see a lot of just like regular public schools who have special needs programs are happy to bring you in because like it not only helps the few kids that they have in that program, but it helps the other kids understand. And, I mean, we've seen a lot of schools like that. I feel like that would be a really easy sell. The only thing with that is you'd have to be mindful of like
what I talk about.
Well, not what you talk about, just how you talk about it. Do you
Yeah.
give the PG version
Right.
or the R version?
And that's not authentic.
Well, there's different ways to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's censored. It's censored.
it's censored. And at the end of the day, dude, like, I was thinking about this on the way over here because I was actually listening to, we don't have to say his name, but again, somebody else disabled, and they were talking about, I was prepping for my interview, I was doing homework, and I was listening to a podcast about a guy in a wheelchair and his wife and their inter-able relationship.
Okay,
and, Shane Burkall. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not about to.
There's always so many people like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not about to crap on him or his
Uh-huh.
wife. I think they're great, and I watched their YouTube channel a good bit. Do you know they're like pushing 1 million subscribers?
No, I
They're
know
crushing
that.
it. Yeah. But anyway, something that struck me about, like I said, I was doing research, so what I was listening for was the interviewer.
Yeah.
And kind of like what we talked about earlier, something that struck me about the interview is something I've seen with you 1,000,000 times, is like there's no pushback, and like the way they were being interviewed and
What
the
kind
way
of
they were being
pushback?
handled, just like,
On their part or on the interviewer's
the
part?
interviewer, like if
Okay.
the interviewer like apologized for
Right,
like
yeah.
overstepping, like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't say this, and
Yeah.
like, and at one point Shane was talking about, and for those that don't know, he has the same
Same disease,
exact
yeah.
condition, right? And so, which is spinal muscular atrophy type 2, same
Yep,
thing, right?
yep.
For anyone interested, because I'm sure people would ask.
Yeah.
Along with EPS.
Yeah, we don't know if he has that.
Yeah, we don't know if Shane has that, but Jimmy has EPS. Shane said something about like he's like identity first. So he likes to be called a disabled man as opposed to a man with a disability. But
Disabled man?
yeah, he's like,
He
I
prefers that?
prefer to say I'm a disabled man as opposed to a man with disability, right? And
Okay.
and Shane even says like, there's debate among the disabled community about that, and there's no right way,
man,
this, that, and the other. And like Shane was like putting it out there that it's like not right.
Uh-huh.
And I just got the impression from the people interviewing him that like they were like, oh, this is the right way to say this, and I need to learn, and this, that, and the other. Where I'm listening, and again, I don't know how I would handle it if I was interviewing him. I don't know their relationship. And if you were saying that to me, that'd be different. But like, I think part of the reason we became friends is like you never like put that on me, And like, what I would say to that is like you have a hard time building a real relationship around someone if like you're gonna nitpick words,
Yeah.
And if there's something where I'm like always saying something's like, yo, dude, don't say that. It pisses me off. It's like, all right. But like, I don't know. At the end of the day, in real life, people have so many things going on.
They're
Like,
not thinking so deeply
yeah,
about
I'm not gonna like. I can't change my life to like figure out how everyone wants to be identified. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in this interview, it sounds like it's like a relationship podcast, and they were like, what's your advice about, relationships or marriage, right?
Yes.
And I didn't listen to all their episodes, but like, and this is actually a blog I read recently. It's like, it was like 5 tips for a great marriage or something.
Yeah.
And number 1 was like sex.
Yeah.
Sex is really important.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, dude, like, you're literally a big part of marriage is like, okay, I'm not going to have sex with anyone else. In most cases. Some people are like open, but, we saw with Will and Jada, that doesn't work out too well. But like, nobody ever talks about that, you know what I mean? And like, for whatever reason, it's like this taboo, like, you would never say like, you would say your marriage is on the rocks. You would never be like, well, how's the sex? You know what I mean? Like, you never like anything like that. And so, long story long, I swear this was related, and you can understand it wasn't really the beer that got me lost. It's my mind just goes a million different places. It's like, dude, if I was a middle school boy, and I mean, I don't know what you were like in middle school, but if I was in middle school and I was in a wheelchair and I'm hitting puberty and I was talking to an adult, I'd be like, dude, do I ever have a shot to get laid? You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like that's a big part of your story that I think at least guys would be interested in. And at the same time, if you do that, that would probably limit, you know,
What you can say.
it would limit, you know, the elementary school appearances.
Yes.
But it could still be in the book and you don't talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I think that's, you know, something that is never talked about. So that's what makes it even more interesting if I were to write a story about or that included those stories or like whatever.
experiences,
Yeah,
and,
experiences.
like struggles with it. Like
Yeah.
it's not all good, you know.
No,
There's some
no.
things that
Yes. So I would like to do something like that. But like you said, you have to know your audience.
it's kind of like I'm gonna run with this. I don't know if I ever said this before, but how like the wheelchair's like gasoline on the fire.
Huh?
Like at the end of the day, like you said, I thought of this when you said it's not talked about. Like sex isn't talked about in general.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, with the wheelchair, it's almost assumed, or with disability, I should say, with disability, a lot of times it's assumed that you're like asexual or not interested.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's like you got this topic that's never talked about to a person where people are assuming the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, if I was in middle school in that situation, I'd be like, where do I look? You know what I mean? Like, how do I learn? I feel like you could be a voice for those people.
Yeah. I never saw a person like me on Pornhub.
You could be a visual for those people too.
Uh-huh.
You know, we have always thought about a sex tape.
Yeah,
That could really put you on the map.
There might be a career in that.
Kim K did not become who she is
Without the
despite
sex
the sex tape.
tape. No.
She
Bliss.
became who she is because of the sex
Yeah.
tape.
Yeah.
Donald Trump did not become president despite his bad publicity. He became president because
Because.
of the bad publicity.
Yeah. Bad is what is it, subjective or objective?
Yeah, I think like it depends what you're trying to do.
Because some people eat it up.
But like in the attention economy, attention is king, you know?
Yep,
And I
yep.
think in the past a lot of people think that, you know, good attention is what matters, but I think
Attention is important.
well, and it also depends like, you know, if you're not in a field where you need attention,
right.
you know.
Yeah. The
But-
attention is bad.
but like if you're basically anything creative,
Yep.
it depends on attention.
Yep.
Anything, I mean, I guess you call what Kim Kardashian does creative, but like this
Yeah,
show business,
yeah.
whatever.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the day, let's be real, politics is just show business.
Yeah.
And I also think like the attention politicians get, people make up their own mind more than media gives people credit for. You know?
Say
like
that.
like mainstream media shit on Donald Trump, right?
Yes.
But the person at home listening was like, all right, well, did he really mean that? Or did he really mean that? You know? And I'm not
Yeah.
saying pro-Trump or anti-Trump. I'm just saying the way he was portrayed,
With
a lot of
interpretation.
people, yeah, a lot of people were like, well, that's not exactly what he said,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's, you know, with anything.
Uh-huh.
Same with Biden. I mean, I'm sure Fox News portrays him like
Yeah,
the biggest
shit.
buffoon ever,
Uh-huh.
and other people are like, actually, Biden's a bad example. I guess Hillary would be a better example because people liked Hillary. But I swear, man, Biden is like the one. I've never met anyone who's like, yeah, I'm thrilled with Biden. You know, I'm just really like. There were people that were thrilled with Trump. There were
Uh-huh.
people that were thrilled with.
Barack.
Oh, of course, Barack.
Uh-huh.
There were people that were thrilled with Hillary. You know,
Uh-huh.
like there were people passionate about first woman president. But
Dude,
like,
she didn't win.
dude, nobody likes Biden. Like, I talk in my Uber, like people I meet, whatever. It's like, it's not Trump. You know, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the hint.
right,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of people that voted for Trump because they didn't like Hillary, and there was a lot of people that voted for Hillary that didn't like Trump.
Uh-huh.
But there was also people that were very passionate about
About
the people.
them,
Is what I'm
yeah.
saying. You know. But dude, I have not met a single person who's like,
I love
man, I just
Biden."
love Biden. I love what he's doing. It's crazy. What's more?
What did the Democrats that you talked to say?
they all say, well, it's not Trump, you know. Oh, Biden's a problem in itself. That's a different problem we need to address. But I swear, like, I've never met anyone that's like, you want more?
Yeah.
I've never met anyone. Have you?
Not really.
Well, this is good, man.
What do you think, Eddie?
What?
I should do that.
I always thought a YouTube channel would crush it.
About what?
But see, the thing with you is, I think your biggest drawback is just being unsure of what you want to share.
Uh-huh.
And I don't say that in judgment in the sense that you should or shouldn't. Because it's like, you know, I know everyone has things they want to keep private and whatnot, but like, you know, the wild and crazy things you do are funny, one, but they're also interesting. And I think they're like revealing in the sense it's like, wow, this, you know, something we've always talked about, like, oh, he's just some innocent kid in a wheelchair and he just said what to me, you know? So it's interesting, but like, you know, even things like, you know, home health care aides. Like it raised my blood pressure thinking about like the stories like they put in the newspaper that are like so far from the truth. You know what I mean? Or like that whole industry where I feel like there are two people that get screwed.
Yeah.
The client and the home health care aide. You know? And you know, I just feel like the stories from that, I feel like you could write a book on that.
Yeah.
But again, like that's something where I don't know. I'm sure if you told the truth about a lot of those things, I don't know if home health care agencies are allowed to deny a client, but I'm sure they find a way. They're like, oh, we don't want him telling people how we treat our clients and caregivers as we break in the big bucks.
Yeah. It definitely is a, you know, people don't get the true picture from the media. I think that there are good caregivers and bad caregivers. Lots of bad ones, it's hard to find good ones. And, you know, people miss it out, like, they are underpaid, I will say that. I think that it's very easy to become a home health care aide, so therefore, like, they don't pay them a lot. So sometimes it attracts people that aren't really invested in the job.
Well, what's crazy to me is when I learned about how, you know, you start, because I was a home health care aide, and I negotiated my salary, and they actually gave it to me. I was surprised. Dude, I remember, they were like, I always put on, you know, when you apply for a job, it says desired salary.
Yeah.
And like, you know, even at like, actually I didn't do it at PF Chang's because I really wanted that job. But I put desired salary and I put like $1 million a year or so. And I think when I did the home health care, I did like $100 an hour. And the dude came back in and he was like, and these jobs, for those who don't know, started like $8.50 an hour.
Yeah. Now they're like 10.
Okay. Minimum wage in Philly is
$8.50 maybe? I don't know.
It might be higher now. But anyway, yeah, I put $100 an hour, and he comes in, he's like, all stressed out. He's like, dude, I don't know if I can do this salary. I was like, yeah, no kidding, man, it was a joke. I was like, $100 an hour. He was like, all right, well, I was prepared to give you 12. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. I was thinking 8. But so, like, I learned from living with you, and I don't know, I'm sure it's public record, but like, say I'm getting paid $8.50 an hour, they're charging the government like
17 or something like that.
I think even higher than that.
I think
it's in the 20s. That's what the government pays them, but at the same time, the agency has all these fees and clearances and all these things they have to pay for insurance. So like, it's just crazy the amount of inefficiency that happens in that field. And you were saying that I guess I'll say it. This is his idea. I'm stealing from him. But you said if everyone had like a pool, if there was just one pool of home health care aides, that way when you do have a shortage and sometimes you get stuck, which, you know, you can't stay overnight by yourself, like you need someone to come down, they could pull from this pool. But there's all these different agencies that have all these different clearances and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So like if you can only go, that's the part of it that I think people want to understand. You can only be with one agency.
Right.
An analogy would be if your agency was Uber
Yeah.
and you could only use Uber drivers.
Yes.
But what you're saying is, why don't you allow people like you
Yeah.
to have a pool that they can select from, and they can select from Uber, and if Uber's not available, they can check Lyft,
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
Lyft's not available, they can check taxi.
Yeah.
If that's not available, they can check public transportation. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like but the way agencies are set up, it's like, okay, Jimmy, you're assigned to Uber.
Yeah.
The next guy who needs help, he can only use Lyft.
Yeah.
And it's like it screws you because if
Right.
there's no Ubers available,
It's
you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're calling me to come on down and be
Yeah.
like, actually, you're
somebody.
calling your family.
Yeah.
You're family, man.
Yeah, that's
You can't have a podcast without shouting out. I can't
Yeah.
have you on my podcast without shouting out your family. Just because,
Yeah.
man, you got some superheroes in your
I
family. Man.
do. I do.
It's a blessing to be a sidekick at the family parties and the events where
Yeah.
I get to be a part of that. Because, man, I love you. I cannot speak highly enough of your family.
They never leave me hanging.
They are good people. Do you remember? It was during COVID. It was like the first time I was around people in a long time, and I hadn't drank for a while, so I had a couple, and I tried to give a toast. You remember? And I was like bugging out after the toast. I was like, dude, did I say something inappropriate? Like I was afraid I like dropped an F-bomb in front of your mom or something. Do you remember that? I was like bugging out. It was
Barely.
a Conor McGregor fight.
Yeah, that's my
Remember?
birthday.
I was like, dude, oh, that's right, it was your birthday. So I told you, and you know what? I was afraid I like made a joke about your member size. I was like, oh man, I hope I didn't say that in front of his mom. That
No.
angel.
That night is blurry for me.
Yeah, well, you passed out before the fight even took place. About ready to order this cheesesteak?
Someone?
Yeah. You go for a cheesesteak?
If you want it.
Oh man, that was fast. Thank you very much. Oh, this
Thank
was
you.
great. Oh, this is awesome. Thank you very much.
I'm
No, I'm good. This is good. Yeah, thanks. Just a
Thank you.
check, actually. This will be it. Thank you. What are you laughing at? Oh, no, good. Also, it's starting to hit me, so this isn't necessary.
Wait, well, tell me what you
Shut up. How long have you worked here? Come here often?